The transport ship emerged from the jump gate, and Minseo pressed his face against the viewport. Apex 7 station stretched before them like a small moon, its metal surface gleaming under the light of 3 distant stars. Somewhere inside that massive structure, 50,000 alien cadets were training to become the galaxy's military elite. "It's bigger than I thought," Jiwan said from the seat beside him. Her eyes were wide with wonder. "How are we supposed to find our way around?" "One step at a time," Hyunwoo replied from across the cabin. He sat with his arms crossed, face calm. But Minseo noticed his friend's jaw was tight. They were all nervous, though none of them would say it out loud. Captain Daeho Kim floated into the cabin. In zero gravity, he moved with the easy grace of someone who'd spent years in space. "Gather your things. We dock in 10 minutes. He paused, studying the 3 young faces. "Remember why you're here. You're not just representing Earth, you're showing the galaxy what humans can do." Minseo swallowed hard. For 600 years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Concordat, but they'd always been seen as minor players, a young species from a harsh world. Most aliens thought humans were too weak to matter, too soft. This exchange program was humanity's chance to prove otherwise. The docking process took an hour. When the airlock finally opened, Minseo got his first look at alien cadets. 2 Vrexians stood guard at the entrance. They looked like walking tanks, their bodies covered in thick armor plating. Each one was easily 8 feet tall. They looked down at the humans with something like amusement in their small eyes. "Welcome to the Collegium," one of them said. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Try not to get stepped on." The first 3 days passed in a blur. The station was enormous, a maze of corridors and training halls. Everywhere Minseo looked, he saw aliens. Tall ones, short ones, ones with scales and ones with fur. Some had forearms. Others had wings. A few seemed to be made of living crystal, but all of them stared at the humans. Whispers followed them everywhere. "Death worlders," some aliens muttered. "Gravity dwellers." Others called them prey animals. Minseo heard one group of Carthax cadets laughing about how humans had blunt teeth and soft skin. The Carthax looked like lions that had learned to walk upright. They were covered in golden fur, with massive shoulders and retractable claws. Their leader was a young male named Thrin. He was the biggest of the group, with a dark mane and cold yellow eyes. Whenever he saw the humans in the halls, he would bare his teeth in what might have been a smile. It never felt friendly. On the 4th day, Captain Daeho took them to their first class, Advanced Combat Theory, taught by Professor Velkrin. The classroom was huge, with seats arranged in a circle around a central platform. Already, dozens of alien cadets filled the space. The humans found seats near the back. Professor Velkrin was a Nexian, a species that looked like walking octopuses. His tendrils waved as he spoke, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Today we discuss pack behavior and command presence. The ability to control a group through force of will alone." He gestured toward Captain Daeho. "Our human instructor has agreed to demonstrate human command structures. Captain Kim, if you would." Daeho stood and walked toward the center platform. But before he could speak, there was a loud crash. Minseo's datapad clattered across the floor. He looked up to see Thrin standing over him, one massive paw still extended from the shove. "Clumsy prey," Thrin said, his voice a low growl. "Dropped your little toy." The classroom went quiet. Every eye turned toward them. Minseo felt his heart rate pick up, but he kept his face calm. He bent to pick up the datapad. "Thank you for pointing that out," he said evenly. Thrin's ears flattened against his skull. "You dare speak to me like an equal?" He leaned down, bringing his fanged face inches from Minseo's. "Prey doesn't belong in a warrior's classroom. Maybe I should teach you your place." Minseo could smell the Carthax's breath, could see every sharp tooth. Thrin outweighed him by at least 200 pounds, and those claws could probably cut through metal. But Minseo had grown up on Earth. He'd been taught since childhood that the worst thing you could do with a predator was show fear. "I belong here as much as you do," Minseo said quietly. Thrin snarled, a sound that made several nearby cadets flinch. He raised one clawed hand. The threat was clear. Around the room, other instructors watched. One of them was an older Carthax with gray streaks in his mane. Instructor Vrel, Thrin's uncle. He made no move to stop his nephew. That was when Captain Daeho spoke. One word, delivered in a tone that could have frozen fire. "Sit." The effect was instant. Thrin's ears shot up. His pupils went wide. Every muscle in his body went rigid. Then, moving like he had no control over his own limbs, he sat down. Hard. His tail curled around his body in a defensive posture. The room was silent. Not the quiet of people paying attention. The silence of people holding their breath. Minseo looked around and saw something amazing. Every predator species in the room had reacted. Ears flat, claws retracted, eyes averted. Even Instructor Vrel had straightened in his seat, his tail still. Captain Deho walked slowly to the center of the room. His movements were calm, unhurried, but there was something in the way he held himself that made even the largest aliens seem small. "Let me explain something about humans," Deho said. His voice was normal now, almost conversational, but everyone listened like their lives depended on it. "On Earth, my species did something that most of you would think impossible. We took apex predators and made them into companions." He walked in a slow circle as he spoke. Wolves hunted in packs. They could kill prey 10 times their size. They were perfect killers. And we took them into our homes. We turned them into dogs. Loyal, obedient, loving. Professor Velkrin's tendrils had gone completely still. "How?" he whispered. "Not through strength," Deho replied. "Through something deeper. Humans understand social dominance in a way most species don't. We can project authority that speaks directly to the predator brain. When I said sit, I didn't use magic. I used the same tone that humans have used for thousands of years to control animals much more dangerous than ourselves." He looked at Thrin, who was still sitting, still frozen. "Your instincts told you that I was higher in the pack order, that I was dominant, and those instincts overrode your conscious mind. You sat because every predator instinct you have recognized an apex predator. But humans aren't apex predators," one of the Vrexian cadets protested. "You're small, weak, you have no natural weapons," Deho smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. "We're persistence hunters. On Earth, humans didn't kill prey by being stronger or faster. We followed them, for hours, for days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. We outlasted everything else on our planet, and then we domesticated the survivors." He turned to address the whole room. "You call us prey animals because we don't have claws or fangs. But ask yourselves this. How many species in this room have turned predators into pets? How many have taken the most dangerous animals on their world and made them love them?" The silence stretched. No one answered. "That's what I thought," Deho said quietly. He looked at Thrin again. "You can stand now." Thrin rose slowly, his movements uncertain. He wouldn't meet Deho's eyes. Without a word, he moved to a seat far from the humans. His followers went with him, silent and subdued. Professor Velkrin cleared his throat. "Well, that was an excellent demonstration of command presence. Perhaps we should move on to the next topic." But no one was paying attention to the lecture anymore. They were all looking at the humans. And for the first time since arriving at the Collegium, Minseo didn't see mockery in those alien eyes. He saw something else, something that might have been respect. Or perhaps fear. After class, as they walked back to their quarters, Ji-won let out a long breath. "That was intense." "That was necessary," Hyun-woo replied. "They needed to know we're not helpless." Minseo said nothing. He was thinking about the look on Thrin's face. The involuntary submission, the fear. Captain Deho had just taught the entire Collegium a lesson, but Minseo suspected they'd only learned half of it. The other half would come later. They reached their quarters to find a message waiting. It was from Instructor Vrel, brief and formal. It requested a private meeting with Captain Deho the next morning. Minseo read it twice, trying to understand the tone. Was it a threat? A warning? "What do you think he wants?" Ji-won asked. Deho smiled. "I think he wants to understand why his nephew obeyed a human without question. And I think that curiosity is a good sign." He looked at his 3 students. "Get some rest. Tomorrow the real work begins." That night, Minseo lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. The station's ventilation system hummed quietly. Through the walls, he could hear alien voices speaking in languages he didn't understand. They were so far from Earth, so far from home, but for the first time since arriving, he didn't feel quite so small. Humans might not have claws or armor, but they had something else. Something the galaxy was just beginning to understand. News traveled fast on Apex 7. By breakfast the next morning, everyone knew what had happened in Professor Velkrin's class. The humans couldn't walk 10 feet without drawing stairs. Some aliens whispered and pointed. Others moved out of their way in the corridors. Minseo found it strange. Before yesterday, most species had looked at humans like they were cute pets, harmless. Now they kept their distance, like the humans might suddenly turn dangerous. He supposed, in a way, that was an improvement. At lunch, something unexpected happened. A small alien approached their table. She looked like a rabbit that walked on two legs with soft gray fur and large dark eyes. Her ears drooped nervously as she stood there holding her tray. "Can I sit here?" she asked in a small voice. Jiwon smiled and gestured to an empty seat. "Of course. I'm Jiwon. This is Minseo and Hyunwoo." The alien sat down carefully. "I'm Pirin, I'm Quellan." She picked at her food. "I wanted to thank you. Yesterday, after what happened in class, some of the larger cadets stopped bothering me. I think they're worried you might defend me." "Are cadets bothering you often?" Hyunwoo asked, his expression darkening. Pirin shrugged. "It's normal for prey species. The predators like to remind us of our place. Usually it's just words. Sometimes they break our things or push us around. The instructors say it's natural behavior." "That's not natural," Jiwon said firmly. "That's bullying. And it's not acceptable where we come from." Pirin looked at her with wide eyes. "But humans are predators too. Captain Kim proved that yesterday. Why would you care about prey species?" Minseo thought about how to explain. "On Earth we have a saying, the strong protect the weak. It's not about predator or prey. It's about doing what's right." From that day on, Pirin ate lunch with them every day. Word spread, and soon other prey species started sitting nearby. They didn't always join the conversation, but they seemed to feel safer close to the humans. It was strange and wonderful at the same time. Meanwhile, Captain Daeho's meeting with Instructor Vrel had led to something unexpected. The Carthax instructor wanted to understand humans better. He asked Daeho to co-teach his advanced tactics course. The first joint lesson was scheduled for the end of the week, but before that could happen, Hyunwoo received a challenge. It came during combat training. A massive Vrexian named Kroth stepped into the practice ring and pointed at Hyunwoo with one armored finger. "You," Kroth rumbled. "Human, I challenge you to sanctioned combat. You think you're so special? Prove it." The training hall went quiet. Sanctioned combat was serious. It was full contact, fought in front of the entire academy. Winners earned respect. Losers earned scars. Hyunwoo looked at Kroth. The Vrexian stood almost 8 feet tall. His skin was covered in thick armor plates that looked like they could stop bullets. His arms were thicker than Hyunwoo's legs. In terms of raw strength, there was no comparison. "I accept," Hyunwoo said calmly. "Are you insane?" Minseo hissed after Kroth had walked away. "He's going to crush you." "Maybe," Hyunwoo agreed. "But if I refuse, everyone will think humans are cowards. Besides, strength isn't everything. Captain Kim taught us that." The fight was scheduled for 3 days later. That gave Hyunwoo time to prepare. He spent hours in the gym, but he wasn't lifting weights or practicing strikes. Instead, he ran, mile after mile on the treadmill. He swam laps in the pool. He did long sets of exercises that built endurance rather than strength. "What's your plan?" Jiwon asked, watching him train. "Simple," Hyunwoo said between breaths. "I can't beat him with strength, so I'll beat him with time." The night before the fight, Captain Daeho pulled Hyunwoo aside. "You know you don't have to do this. There's no shame in declining." "Yes, there is," Hyunwoo replied. "Not for me. For every human who comes after us. If I back down now, they'll always see us as weak. But if I try, even if I lose, at least I'll show them we don't give up." Daeho smiled. "You sound like a persistence hunter." "Good. Remember, on Earth humans ran down prey for days. We didn't need to be faster. We just needed to last longer. Use that. Fight day arrived. The entire academy turned out to watch. The arena was a large circular space with padded floors and energy barriers to protect the crowd. Minseo and Jiwon found seats in the front row. Around them, hundreds of alien cadets filled the stands. Most were betting on how quickly Kroth would win. Hyunwoo entered the ring first, wearing light training clothes. He looked small and fragile under the bright lights. Then Kroth entered, and the crowd roared. The Vrexian raised his arms, showing off his massive frame. His natural armor gleamed. This was going to be a massacre. The referee, a neutral Nexian, explained the rules. The fight would continue until one fighter submitted or was unable to continue. No weapons. No killing strikes. Everything else was permitted. The bell rang. Kroth charged immediately, his footsteps shaking the arena floor. Hyunwoo sidestepped at the last second. Kroth's momentum carried him past, and he had to scramble to turn around. The crowd laughed. "Stand still and fight," Kroth bellowed. Hyunwoo didn't respond. He kept moving, staying just out of reach. Kroth charged again. Again, Hyunwoo dodged. This pattern repeated for the first 5 minutes. Kroth attacking, Hyunwoo evading. The crowd started to get restless, but Minseo was watching Kroth carefully. The Vrexian's charges were already getting slower. His breathing was becoming labored. All that muscle and armor was heavy, and Hyunwoo was making him work for every attempt. By the 10th minute, Kroth was noticeably tired. His charges had turned into slow advances. Sweat poured down his armored face. Hyunwoo, meanwhile, was barely breathing hard. He'd been training for endurance for 3 days straight, but his whole life had been preparation for this. Every human was built for it. At the 15-minute mark, Kroth could barely lift his arms. He swung at Hyunwoo with slow, desperate movements. Hyunwoo blocked easily and struck back. Not hard strikes meant to injure, just quick jabs that showed he could hit whenever he wanted. "Submit," Hyunwoo said. It wasn't a taunt. It was almost kind. "You fought well. There's no shame in stopping now." Kroth tried to charge one more time. He made it 3 steps before his legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. The referee called the match. Hyunwoo won by endurance. The arena was silent. Then slowly someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the entire crowd was applauding. Not the wild cheering they'd given Kroth when he entered. This was different. This was respect. Hyunwoo helped Kroth to his feet. The Vrexian looked at him with new eyes. "How?" he gasped. "I'm stronger, bigger. How did you win?" "Because I didn't try to match your strength," Hyunwoo said. "I used mine. Humans are endurance hunters. We don't sprint. We marathon. You were running a race I've been training for my entire life." Captain Daeho entered the ring. The crowd quieted to hear him speak. "On Earth, humans hunted animals much larger and stronger than ourselves. We didn't do it by fighting them. We did it by following them, hour after hour, day after day, until they couldn't run anymore. Our prey would collapse from exhaustion while we were barely tired. That's what human endurance means. We outlast everything." He looked around at the packed arena. "You think humans are weak because we don't have armor or claws? But ask yourselves this. How many of you could fight for 15 minutes straight without tiring? How many could run for hours? How many could keep going when every muscle screamed to stop?" No one answered. The message was clear. That evening, something remarkable happened. Instructor Vrel came to the human quarters. The large Carthax had to duck to fit through the doorway. He looked uncomfortable, like he wasn't used to asking for things. "Captain Kim," he said formally, "I wish to change our arrangement. I don't just want you to co-teach one course. I want you to help redesign our entire combat curriculum." Daeho raised an eyebrow. "That's a significant request." "Why?" Vrel's tail swished. "Because I've spent 30 years teaching cadets to rely on their natural advantages. Strength, speed, natural weapons. But today I watched a species with none of those things defeat one of the strongest cadets in the academy. If humans can do that, then I've been teaching the wrong lessons." He looked at all 3 human cadets. "You think differently than we do. You fight differently. You see possibilities we don't. The galaxy needs to learn these things, not to become human, but to understand that there are other ways to be strong." Daeho considered this. Then he nodded. "We'll help, but on one condition. You have to accept that our methods won't always make sense to you. Sometimes you'll have to trust us even when it goes against your instincts." "Agreed," Vrel said without hesitation. After the Carthax left, Jiwon let out a low whistle. "Did that just happen? Did we just get asked to teach the teachers?" "We did," Minseo said. He felt a strange mix of pride and pressure. "Now we have to figure out what to teach them." Hyunwoo smiled despite his exhaustion. "We teach them what it means to be human. We teach them that the best weapon isn't strength or speed. It's the refusal to give up. It's looking at impossible odds and deciding to try anyway." Captain Daeho nodded. "Exactly. The galaxy sees us as a young species, weak, inexperienced. But we survived a death world. We turned predators into friends. We reached the stars despite having every reason to stay in our caves. That persistence, that stubbornness, that's what we're going to teach them." Outside their window, Apex 7 Station hummed with life. 50,000 cadets from across the galaxy, all training to become warriors. And 3 humans were about to change everything they thought they knew about strength. The joint teaching session started 2 weeks after Hyunwoo's fight. Captain Daeho and Instructor Vrel stood together at the front of the advanced tactics classroom. The room was packed. Word had spread that the humans were teaching something new, something different. Even cadets who weren't enrolled had found excuses to attend. Today we discuss asymmetric warfare, Deho began. Fighting when your enemy is stronger, faster, and better equipped than you are. A Vrexian cadet raised his hand. Why would we study that? The Concordat has the strongest military in the galaxy. We are never the weaker force, Niu. Are you sure about that? Deho asked. Right now, yes, the Concordat is powerful. But what happens when you face something unexpected? What if tomorrow a new species appears with better technology, better weapons? What will you do then? The room went quiet. No one had thought about it that way. Humans have fought as the weaker force many times, Deho continued. We've had to develop strategies that don't rely on superior strength. Let me give you an example. He brought up a holographic display. It showed Earth during what humans called World War II. This is a story about deception. One side wanted to invade enemy territory, but the enemy was expecting an attack. They had more soldiers, better positions. A direct assault would fail. So what did they do? Asked a Carthax cadet. They lied, Deho said simply. They created an entire fake army. Inflatable tanks. False radio signals. Fake documents that they let the enemy find. They made the enemy believe the attack would come from a different place entirely. When the real attack happened, the enemy was looking the wrong way. The classroom erupted in discussion. Many cadets were shocked. Several looked disgusted. Frel raised his hand for silence. This deception. It's dishonorable, is it not? Is it? Deho asked. The weaker force faced an enemy that could have crushed them. They used intelligence instead of strength. They saved thousands of lives on both sides by ending the war faster. Where's the dishonor in that? Minseo spoke up from his seat. Most species think in terms of direct confrontation. Predator versus prey, hunter versus hunted. But humans learn to think several steps ahead. We can hold multiple scenarios in our minds at once. We can plan for things that haven't happened yet. He stood and walked to the display. Let me show you another example. It's about patience and long-term thinking. He pulled up historical data from Earth. For years, a small group fought against a much larger, better-equipped army. They couldn't win battles, so they didn't try to. Instead, they made it impossible for the enemy to win the war. How? Someone asked. By refusing to quit, Minseo explained. They attacked supply lines instead of armies. They disappeared into difficult terrain. They made every small victory cost the enemy more than it was worth. Eventually, the enemy gave up and went home. The smaller force won not by being stronger, but by being more stubborn. A Nexian instructor spoke up. This seems inefficient. Why not gather strength and attack decisively? Because sometimes you don't have time to gather strength, Jiwan said. She'd been invited to demonstrate human engineering principles. Sometimes you have to fight with what you have right now. That's where human adaptability comes in. She pulled out a broken training device. This stopped working yesterday. Standard procedure would be to order new parts, which would take 3 weeks to arrive. But watch this. She spent the next 10 minutes jury-rigging a repair using spare parts from completely different equipment. When she was done, the device worked perfectly. Humans call this making do, she explained. We're very good at fixing things with whatever we have available. On Earth, resources were often scarce. We couldn't always wait for the perfect solution. We learned to create imperfect solutions that worked right now. Over the next few weeks, the teaching continued. Each session revealed something new about human thinking. The alien cadets learned about psychological warfare, about using fear and uncertainty as weapons. They learned about guerrilla tactics, about turning the environment itself into an ally. They learned about the human concept of acceptable losses and how to make hard choices in impossible situations. But not everyone was happy with these lessons. Commandant Rexith, a high-ranking Vrexian official, grew increasingly vocal in his opposition. He cornered Captain Deho after one class. This is not how warriors should think, Rexith growled. You teach them to hide, to deceive, to avoid direct combat. These are the tactics of cowards, Deho remained calm. I teach them to survive, to win even when winning seems impossible. Isn't that what a warrior should do? A warrior should face his enemy with honor, Rexith insisted. These human methods have no place in our military tradition. Your tradition assumes you'll always be the stronger force, Deho replied. What happens when you're not? What happens when your strength isn't enough? Do you just die honorably, or do you adapt and survive? Rexith had no answer. He stormed off, his tail lashing in anger. That evening, Vrel approached Deho privately. Rexith is dangerous. He has many supporters among the traditional instructors. They see your teachings as a threat to the old ways. I know, Deho said, but the old ways won't work forever. The galaxy is changing. Species need to learn new methods or they'll be left behind. I agree, Vrel said, but Rexith will try to stop you. Be careful. The warning proved accurate. Within days, Rexith made his move. He proposed a special event. The annual War Games, normally held at the end of the year, would be moved up, and this year would feature a special challenge. The human cadets and their supporters would form one team. They would face a hand-picked squad led by Thrin. This is a setup, Minseo said when he heard the news. Thrin gets to pick 40 cadets. We can only field 12. They'll have superior numbers and resources. Exactly, Hyunwoo agreed. It's designed to humiliate us. When we lose, Rexith will say our methods don't work. He'll use it as proof that humans shouldn't be teaching here. Jiwan looked at Captain Deho. Can we refuse? We could, Deho said. But that would prove Rexith's point. He'd say we're afraid to test our own theories. No, we have to accept, and we have to win. How? Minseo asked. Even with everything we've learned, the odds are impossible. 40 against 12. Better equipment. More experience, Deho smiled. Remember what I've been teaching. You don't win by matching their strength. You win by changing the game itself. We have 2 weeks to prepare. Let's show them what humans do when facing impossible odds. The next 2 weeks were intense. The human team consisted of Minseo, Jiwan, and Hyunwoo, plus 9 others. Piran volunteered immediately. So did Kroth, the Vrexian who'd fought Hyunwoo. Several prey species cadets joined, tired of being pushed around. A few predator species came too, curious to test these new tactics. It was the strangest team in Collegium history. Different species, different strengths, different ways of thinking. But they all shared one thing. They believed in what the humans were teaching. Minseo studied the War Games rules obsessively. The scenario involved controlling resource nodes scattered across a simulated star system. Standard tactics were simple. Secure orbit, establish bases, attack with overwhelming force. That's how every war game had been won for decades. So we don't play it that way, Minseo said during a planning session. We can't win a straight fight. So we make them fight our kind of battle instead. What does that mean? Piran asked. It means we use every lesson we've taught, Jiwan said, catching on. Deception, misdirection, patience. We make them think they're winning while we're actually setting up our real strategy. We'll need to split up, Hyunwoo added. Small teams hitting multiple targets. Keep them off balance. Make them spread their forces thin. And most importantly, Minseo said, we need to remember what Captain Kim said. The galaxy thinks in terms of single decisive battles, but humans think in campaigns, in wars of attrition. We don't need to beat them in one fight. We just need to make sure they can't beat us in any fight that matters. The plan came together slowly. It was complex, multi-layered, and relied on perfect timing. It was also completely unlike anything that had ever been tried in the war games before. The night before the games, the entire team gathered in the human quarters. They were nervous, excited, a little scared. Across the station, Thrin's team was probably celebrating already, certain of their victory. Captain Deho looked at each member of his unlikely team. Prey and predator sitting together, united not by species but by belief. Tomorrow you're going to teach the galaxy something important, he said. You're going to show them that the biggest advantage isn't strength or numbers. It's the willingness to think differently, to question assumptions, to fight smart instead of fighting hard. He smiled. Humans have been underdogs for our entire existence. Every predator on Earth was bigger, stronger, deadlier than us. But we're still here. And most of them exist only in zoos or history books. You know why? Because we never stopped trying. We never accepted defeat. And we never fought fair when fighting smart was an option. Tomorrow, show them what that means. The team dispersed to get rest, but Minseo stayed behind, staring at the tactical displays. Everything depended on the plan working. If they failed, human credibility at the Collegium would be destroyed. But if they succeeded, they'd prove something far more important. They'd prove that strength came in many forms. He thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of facing impossible odds and finding ways to survive, about the persistence hunters who ran prey to exhaustion, about the social dynamics that let humans cooperate in ways other species couldn't, about the tool-using intelligence that turned weakness into strength. Tomorrow they would put all of it to the test, and the galaxy would learn what it really meant to face a human who refused to give up. Part 4. The War Games arena was packed. Every instructor, every cadet, and dozens of military officials filled the observation decks. Giant screens showed the virtual battlefield, a star system with 3 planets, multiple moons, and asteroid fields. 20 resource nodes scattered throughout. The rules were simple. First team to control 75% of nodes for 1 hour would win. Thrin's team entered their simulation pods first. 40 cadets, all hand-picked, the strongest, fastest, most experienced fighters in the academy. They moved with confidence, already celebrating their inevitable victory. The crowd cheered for them. Then the human team entered. 12 cadets, mixed species. Several were prey animals who'd never been in combat before. The crowd fell silent. Some looked away, embarrassed for them. This wasn't going to be a competition. It was going to be a massacre. In the observation deck, Commandant Rexith smiled. "This will prove once and for all that human methods are useless in real combat," he said to the instructors around him. "Tricks and deception don't work against superior force." Captain Deho stood nearby, arms crossed. He said nothing, but Instructor Vrel, standing beside him, noticed the slight smile on the human's face. "You have a plan," Vrel said quietly. "My students have a plan," Deho corrected. "I just taught them how to think. What they do with that knowledge is up to them." The simulation began. Both teams spawned at opposite ends of the star system with basic ships and limited resources. Standard strategy was to immediately push toward the nearest nodes and establish control. Thrin did exactly that. His team split into 4 groups of 10, each heading for a different cluster of nodes. The human team did something different. They scattered. All 12 ships went in different directions using minimal power. Within minutes, they disappeared into asteroid fields and behind planets. Their signals vanished from Thrin's sensors. "Where did they go?" Thrin demanded, staring at his tactical display. "Find them!" His team spread out further, searching. They secured 5 nodes easily, then 6, 7. No opposition. "They're hiding like cowards," one of Thrin's teammates said. But in the observation deck, Vrel was studying the displays carefully. "They're not hiding," he said. "They're observing, learning Thrin's patterns. Look at the movement vectors. The human team is tracking Thrin's forces from a distance." "What good does that do?" Rexith scoffed. "Thrin controls 7 nodes already. The humans control 0. This game is over." "Maybe," Deho said. "Or maybe it's just beginning." 20 minutes into the simulation, the first strike came. Jiwan's ship appeared behind Thrin's supply convoy. She didn't destroy it. Instead, she boarded it in a lightning-fast raid, planted something in the cargo hold, and vanished before anyone could respond. "What was that?" Thrin demanded. "Did she take anything?" His tech specialist checked. "No, sir, nothing's missing. I think she just wanted to spook us." But 2 hours later, the supplies from that convoy started failing. Thrin's ships began reporting equipment malfunctions. Jiwan hadn't stolen anything. She'd sabotaged everything. Faulty components that would work fine initially but fail under stress. Then Hyunwoo struck. His team hit a mining operation, not to destroy it, but to rig the automated drones to broadcast false signals. Suddenly, Thrin's sensors showed enemy contacts all over the system. His forces scrambled to respond, chasing ghosts. "Stop chasing shadows," Thrin roared. "Focus on securing more nodes." But his team was already tired. They'd been on high alert for hours, jumping at every sensor contact. The human team, meanwhile, had been taking turns resting. Fresh pilots against exhausted ones. It was persistence hunting on a galactic scale. Minseo watched everything from his command ship, hidden in a radiation cloud that masked his sensors. He'd been studying Thrin's tactics for 3 hours now, He knew every pattern, every tendency, every weakness. "Peer in," he said into the comm. "Execute Phase 2. Piran's small ship darted out from behind a moon. Her species was prey animals, naturally gifted at evasion. She led 3 of Thrin's ships on a chase through an asteroid field. They followed eagerly, thinking they'd finally caught one of the humans. But Piran knew every twist and turn. She'd spent the first 2 hours of the simulation mapping escape routes. The chase led Thrin's ships directly into an ambush. Croth and his team were waiting. They disabled all 3 ships in seconds. Not destroyed, just knocked out of commission. 3 fewer ships for Thrin to use. "This is impossible," Thrin shouted. "They can't coordinate like this. They're different species. How are they working together so well?" In the observation deck, Professor Velkrin's tendrils waved excitedly. "Fascinating. The human team isn't using traditional command structures. Each member is making independent decisions, but they all work toward the same goal. It's like watching a school of fish move as one entity." "Humans call it trust," Diho explained. "Each team member knows the overall strategy. They don't need constant orders. They adapt in real time, supporting each other naturally." 4 hours into the simulation, Thrin's team was falling apart. They'd been chasing the humans across the entire system. Equipment was failing. Crews were exhausted. Worst of all, they were arguing. Without constant success to unify them, old rivalries between species emerged. Predators blamed prey species for being too slow. Prey species accused predators of being too aggressive. The human team, meanwhile, had grown closer. Shared hardship created bonds. When Piran's ship took damage, Croth immediately moved to protect her. When Croth ran low on ammunition, G1 rerouted supplies to him. They were becoming more than a team. They were becoming a pack. "Now," Minseo said, "execute final phase." The human team struck at 3 different nodes simultaneously, but these were feints, meant to draw attention. While Thrin scrambled to defend, Hyunwoo slipped a small team to a forgotten node in a remote corner of the system. A communications relay that nobody had considered important. "Got it," Hyunwoo reported. "We have control of the relay." Minseo smiled. "G1, you're up." G1 was the best engineer on either team. With control of the communication relay, she could access all of Thrin's command channels. She began broadcasting false orders, retreat commands, conflicting navigation data, orders to regroup at different locations. Chaos erupted in Thrin's fleet. Ships moved in different directions. Some thought they were following orders. Others realized something was wrong but couldn't figure out what. The carefully coordinated force dissolved into confusion. "It's a hack," Thrin's tech specialist shouted. "Someone's infiltrated our comms." "Then shut it down," Thrin ordered. "I can't, sir. They have control at the relay level. We'd have to physically retake that node." But by the time Thrin sent ships to retake the relay, it was too late. The human team had secured 12 resource nodes, not through force, but through timing and position. With Thrin's fleet scattered and confused, there was no one to stop them. 75% control achieved, the simulation announced, beginning 1-hour countdown. The observation deck erupted in noise. Half the crowd was cheering. The other half sat in stunned silence. This wasn't supposed to be possible. The weaker team wasn't supposed to win. But then Minseo did something that shocked everyone even more. He opened a channel on all frequencies. "Thrin, this is Minseo. We've proven our point. Your team fought well, but you were using the wrong tactics. Now we'd like to make a proposal. Instead of holding these nodes for an hour, we'll share control. Both teams win together, or we can keep fighting until one side is completely defeated. Your choice." The offer hung in the silence. In the history of the war games, no one had ever proposed sharing victory. It went against every competitive instinct. Thrin's first instinct was to refuse, to keep fighting. But he looked at his scattered, exhausted team. Then he looked at the calm, coordinated human team. They'd been outplayed at every turn. And now, in victory, the humans were offering mercy. "Stand down," Thrin ordered his team. His voice was quiet, defeated. Then, more loudly, "We accept your terms." The war games ended not with a victory celebration, but with both teams working together to hold the resource nodes. It was unprecedented, historic, and it sent a message that echoed through the entire Collegium. In the observation deck, Commandant Rexith stood frozen, his face twisted with rage. He'd wanted to humiliate the humans. Instead, they'd done the impossible. Worse, they'd done it with mercy and honor. Vrel approached Captain Deho. The Carthax instructor's eyes gleamed with respect. They didn't just win. They changed what winning means, Deho nodded. That's the human way. We don't just solve problems. We redefine them. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't crushing your enemy, it's turning them into allies. As the cadets emerged from their simulation pod, something beautiful happened. Thryn walked directly to Minseo. For a long moment, they stood facing each other. Then Thryn extended his clawed hand. Not in challenge, but in respect. Minseo took it. The room erupted in cheers. But in a dark corner of the observation deck, Rexith watched with cold eyes. This wasn't over. The humans had won this battle. But he would make sure they lost the war. The days following the war games were strange. The human cadets couldn't walk through the corridors without being stopped. Some aliens wanted to learn their tactics. Others wanted to challenge them. A few just wanted to touch them, as if humans were some kind of magical creatures. This is getting ridiculous, Jiwan muttered as another group of cadets asked for autographs. We're not celebrities. We just won a simulation. We did more than that, Minseo said. We changed how people think. That's worth more than any victory. But not everyone was celebrating. Commandant Rexith had been quiet since the war games. Too quiet. Instructor Vrel noticed and came to warn Captain Deho one evening. Rexith is planning something, Vrel said, his tail twitching with agitation. He's been meeting with conservative officials from the Concordat. I believe he intends to have your exchange program terminated. On what grounds? Deho asked. That's what worries me, Vrel replied. He needs evidence that humans are dangerous or disruptive. I think he'll try to provoke an incident. The warning proved accurate. 2 days later, Minseo was alone in the archive wing, researching galactic military history. The archives were quiet, usually empty this late in the evening. He was so focused on his reading that he didn't hear anyone approach until a shadow fell across his screen. Thryn stood there, but he wasn't alone. 6 other Carthax cadets surrounded the table. Their postures were aggressive, ears flat, tails lashing. But there was something forced about it, like they were acting rather than genuinely angry. We need to talk, Thryn said. His voice was loud, carrying through the empty archives, almost like he wanted to be overheard. Minseo closed his datapad slowly. About what? About how you humiliated me. About how you've turned this academy upside down with your weak prey tactics. Thryn's words were harsh, but his eyes were different. They looked uncomfortable, even apologetic. I challenge you to a real fight. Right here, right now. No rules, no referees. Prove you're really as tough as you pretend to be. Minseo understood immediately. This was a setup. Thryn was being forced to provoke a violent incident. If Minseo fought back, it would give Rexith the evidence he needed. If Minseo refused, they'd probably attack anyway and claim self-defense. I'm not going to fight you, Minseo said calmly. Thryn shoved the table, sending datapads clattering. Coward, you hide behind words and tricks, but you're weak. All humans are weak. Minseo stood but kept his hands relaxed at his sides. I'm not weak. And I'm not stupid. I know what you're trying to do. Then prove it, Thryn shouted. He was pushing harder now, getting closer. Fight me. Or are you going to run like prey? The insults continued. They got personal, attacking Minseo's honor, his species, his friends. Still, Minseo didn't react. He'd been trained for this. Earth's military didn't just teach combat. They taught control. Then Thryn made a mistake. Maybe I should find that pilot friend of yours. Or the quiet one. Let's see if they're as tough as you pretend to be. Humans break easily, I hear. Something changed in Minseo's eyes. Not anger exactly. Something colder. More dangerous. He took one step forward. Just one. But every Carthax in the room felt it. That same primal recognition they'd felt when Captain Deho said, "Sit." The presence of an apex predator. You can insult me all you want, Minseo said quietly. His voice was calm, but it carried weight. But threaten my people again and you'll learn why Earth's predators learned to fear us. Thryn's ears flattened involuntarily. His backup took a step back. This wasn't supposed to happen. They'd come to intimidate a weak prey species. Instead, they felt like cubs facing something ancient and patient and absolutely certain of its dominance. "Stand down, all of you." Instructor Vrel's voice cut through the tension. The Carthax instructor stepped into the archives, followed by security. "Thrin, you and your friends will come with me, now." As the Carthax cadets filed out, Thrin paused beside Minseo. "I'm sorry," he whispered, so quiet that only Minseo could hear. "Rexith said he'd have me expelled if I didn't do this. I didn't want to, but I had no choice." Minseo nodded slightly, understanding. Then Vrel led them away. An hour later, Captain Deho met with Academy leadership. Vrel had provided evidence. Security footage, communication logs showing Rexith's orders to Thrin, meeting records proving the conspiracy. It was all there, laid out in undeniable detail. The Academy director, an ancient Nexian named Kelthros, reviewed everything in silence. Finally he spoke. "Commandant Rexith will be removed from his position immediately. His attempt to sabotage an official exchange program is unacceptable." "And Thrin?" Vrel asked. "He was coerced. Suspended, not expelled," Kelthros decided. "He made poor choices, but under duress. When he returns, perhaps the human cadets would consider including him in their training groups. He could learn much from them." But Deho wasn't satisfied with just disciplinary action. "Director Kelthros, I request permission to address the full Academy, not as punishment for what happened, but as education about why it happened." The next day, every cadet and instructor gathered in the main assembly hall, thousands of beings from hundreds of species, all waiting to hear what the human would say. Captain Deho stood at the center, his voice calm but clear. "Yesterday, someone tried to destroy the human exchange program. They tried to provoke violence, then use that violence as proof that humans are dangerous. This failed, not because humans are weak or passive. It failed because we understand something fundamental about strength." He gestured to a holographic display showing Earth. "True strength isn't about winning every fight. It's about choosing your battles wisely. It's about knowing when to fight and when to walk away. Most importantly, it's about using the right tool for the job. On Earth, humans developed a concept called transparency. When we're wronged, we don't always strike back physically. Instead, we present evidence. We show the truth to everyone and let that truth be our weapon. That's what we did here. We let the facts speak for themselves." He paused, looking across the assembled crowd. "The galaxy operates on principles of direct confrontation. The strong dominate the weak. Conflicts are resolved through force. But humans ask a different question. What if there's a better way? What if transparency and truth are stronger than any physical weapon? What if cooperation is more powerful than conquest?" Professor Velkrin rose from his seat. "Captain Kim, you speak of changing fundamental aspects of galactic society. This is ambitious. Perhaps too ambitious. The old ways have served us for millennia. Have they?" Deho challenged gently. "Or have they just maintained the status quo? How many conflicts could be avoided if species communicated honestly instead of posturing? How many problems could be solved if we shared knowledge instead of hoarding it? How much stronger would the Concordat be if every species contributed their unique strengths instead of trying to fit into predator-prey categories?" The hall was silent. Then Director Kelthros stood. "The human raises valid points. I propose we expand the exchange program. Not just 3 human cadets, but 30. And not limited to the military academy. I want human teachers, doctors, engineers, and philosophers throughout Concordat space. Let us learn from this young species. Perhaps they will teach us to evolve." The vote was unanimous. That evening, Minseo, Jiwon, and Hyunwoo stood on an observation deck, watching ships come and go from Apex 7. They'd been here only a few months, but it felt like years. So much had changed. "Do you think it will last?" Jiwon asked. "This change we've started?" "Yes," Minseo said with certainty. "Because we didn't force it. We just showed them a different way of thinking. Once you see a new possibility, you can't unsee it." Behind them, the door opened. Thrin entered hesitantly. He'd been released from suspension early, on the condition that he formally apologize. He approached the 3 humans, his ears drooping with shame. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," he began. "For everything. For being arrogant when you arrived. For challenging you. For letting Rexith manipulate me. I was taught that strength meant dominance. That predators were superior. You've shown me how wrong I was." Minseo extended his hand. "We all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them. Want to join us for training tomorrow? We could use someone who knows Karthak's combat techniques. Thrin stared at the offered hand. Then carefully he grasped it. Not a challenge, a partnership. I'd like that, he said. Later that night, Captain Deho received a transmission from Earth. Military Command had reviewed everything that happened at the Collegium. The message was brief but significant. Congratulations. You've opened the door. Now humanity walks through it. Send recommendations for additional personnel. The galaxy wants to learn what it means to be human. Let's teach them. Deho smiled and began composing his response. He thought about what humanity would bring to the galaxy. Not conquest or dominance, but something more valuable. The ability to adapt, to persist, to cooperate across impossible divides, to turn enemies into allies and challenges into opportunities. Humans had spent millions of years as underdogs on a harsh world. They'd developed traits that other species had never needed: endurance, strategic thinking, social intelligence, the ability to see long-term consequences, and most importantly, the stubborn refusal to accept defeat as final. The galaxy had invited humanity to learn from them. Instead, humanity was teaching the galaxy so. And evolution, once started, could not be stopped. It could only grow, spread, and transform everything it touched. Just as humans had transformed their harsh world into a garden, they would help transform the galaxy into something better, not through force, but through the simple act of showing what was possible. In the observation deck, Minseo looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth hung in the darkness, a small blue world that had produced something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that conquered not through strength, but through the refusal to ever stop trying. Humanity, fuck yeah, he whispered to himself, smiling. The adventure was just beginning.